Hello and welcome. This is your online class with The Confident Mother for ambitious women who want to confidently balance work and life. I'm your host. My name is Sherry Bevan, and so let's get started. Today then, what we're going to cover are the 5 secrets that you need to know to confidently balance work and life, whether work is your business or your career or the work that you do in the home. The Confident Mother is an independent coaching practice, and for me, I have these 5 elements that I think are absolutely essential to balance in the way that works for you in order to be that confident mother. For me, it's an approach to life that advocates celebrating and enjoying being a mother and being a woman. The 5 elements are contribution, which for me is about valuing who you are, what's unique and special about you, what you add, how you contribute. Some might call this your purpose or your calling. I like to use the word contribution because I think it's how you contribute to the world. The second element, and we will be spending some more time on this today, is wellness. So this is your physical, your mental and your emotional health, and how you look after yourself. Then the third element, work, and actually this is often the element that women come to me first of all when they want to work with me on their business or their career. But it's about valuing and being valued for the work that you do in your career or in your business, or indeed the work that you do in the home or in your community. And then family, of course, as the confident mother, one of those elements has got to be about the relationship you have with your children or your partner, maybe even your own parents. And for those women that work with me that don't have children, then the family might be in the wider sense of the family you have in your local community or in your local church. And then the final element is the feminine, which for me is about really enjoying, accepting, embracing ourselves and our bodies as women. Perhaps accepting some of the limitations, but also acknowledging and celebrating the strengths too. My name is Sherry Bevan, and I run The Confident Mother, which is an independent coaching practice. But before I set up my business in 2012, I was working in professional services and particularly in technology. My last role at a law firm was as global head of IT service for a city law firm, and I was very much physically based in London, but my role actually was based in Chicago. And then I was running an outsourcing company for about 3.5 years, and actually it was while I was at the outsourcing company that I first started my portfolio career approach. So although I run an independent coaching practice, I also do some other client work on project management and engagement for various organisations, mostly still in the professional services sector. As you can see from the slide here, I've published my own book in 2015 called The Confident Mother. I'm a runner, and that is most definitely one of the ways that I maintain my physical, emotional and mental wellness is by running. I'm regularly invited to appear on Sky News and on BBC to comment on various topics that affect the rights of the working mother, maternity leave, discrimination in the workplace, that kind of topic. But today then, what I would like to share with you are the 5 secrets that you need to know to confidently balance work and life. So let's get started. First, I'd like to explore, well, what do we even mean by balance? There are so many different ideas and concepts and actually arguments. Whenever I use the term work-life balance, I always get somebody coming back to me to say, it's not work-life balance. Work is part of life. But for me, it's very useful shorthand to explain what I'm talking about, because I think basically most people know what I mean when I talk about work-life balance. So it's not necessarily that work and life and family are evenly balanced. You know, there will be times in your life, times in your day even, when there'll be a lot more focus on work And there'll be other times in your life when there'll be a lot more focus on family, or on yourself, or on you as a woman. So that's what I mean by work-life balance. It's how we get our life, and it's not like a balance of scales. It's a bit more like one of those wobbly balls that you get in the gym nowadays, where you're kind of bouncing around and moving around to kind of keep things going. So some people prefer the term a work-life blend. Some people like to use the term integration. For me, work-life balance just means how we live our lives and how we feel about our levels of overwhelm and stress and how happy we are in our lives. So balance is really important, because when you've got that balance, that means that you can be really clear about what it is that you really want. And I think one of the things for me that is so important to bear in mind is that work-life balance, it's very much about what is right and what works for you as an individual. And that will be completely different to your friend, your neighbour, your friend, your mother, and maybe sometimes even your partner. But it is very much about what is right and what works for you. But when you do have that balance, it does allow you to be more productive at work, to be fully present when you are at work, and indeed to be fully present when you're at home with your children or with your partner. And when you've got that balance, it means you can avoid overwhelm, you can avoid the stress levels going through the roof, you can avoid burnout. And I have personal experience of having been through burnout, so I'll tell you a little bit more about that as we go through the session. But that balance feeling, for me, it's not feeling that you're teetering on the edge, just waiting for just one last little thing to tip you over the edge. It's about feeling in control, in charge. It's about feeling confident, powerful, so that you don't miss out on career opportunities, so that you don't hold back from going from those business opportunities. Last year, I surveyed more than 200 women who happened to be mothers about their biggest workplace challenges. It was a very simple, straightforward survey. I just shared some of what I saw as the biggest workplace challenges based on the feedback I'd had from my own clients and from my own experiences and from the women that I talk to every day. So I knew that work-life balance was going to be a biggie. I knew that it's, a lot of women tell me this is the thing they struggle the most with. But what surprised me was that 75% of those women, in other words, 150 women out of 200, told me that work-life balance was the biggest, it was the number one challenge in their life. Though often what I've noticed in conversations and in the interviews that I do, it's not so much the work-life balance, but very often it's how to get more done in your day, how to get more done in your 24 hours. And actually sometimes that's because we're trying to do too much. So at the end of today's session, actually, I'm going to share with you a free resource that you can download from my website that has got 7 very practical ideas on how you can get more done in your workday and how you can get that work-life balance a bit more, balanced. So let's start and look at the secrets now that we've talked a bit about what balance is and why it's important. So secret number 1 for me, and this is the one that I talked about on the registration page and on the sign up, and it's the one that to me is absolutely the number 1. This is the topic of my keynote speech that I do. Looking after number 1 first, so that everything that you do works for you. Looking after yourself first is so important, because if you don't look after yourself, then how are you going to look after anything else? And when I talk about looking after yourself first, I've got this lovely picture of these gorgeous fresh raspberries. I could just do with some fresh raspberries right now. So looking after yourself is not just about the physical, emotional and mental health of eating well, exercising well, drinking healthily, getting good quality sleep. It's not just about looking after that, though of course that is important, and I do encourage you to to eat well, to drink well, to exercise, to be active, and also to have that unplanned downtime. The meditation or the mindfulness is that altered headspace, which we know from the research, from the neuroscience research, is really powerful and really important. It's not just that. Looking after yourself first is also about understanding your contribution, what is unique and special about you, your talents, your strengths, and what you bring to the workplace. It's about acknowledging what you are and what you aren't. It's about getting clear on what you really want. So, for example, if you're feeling really overwhelmed at work, but you're doing work that you just don't enjoy, that is a stress factor for you right there. And that is one of the things, one of the ways in which women often, we're not good at looking after ourselves because we're perhaps doing work that we don't really enjoy. And so the fact that you've got to go to work every day feels a bit mundane, the stress levels goes up, particularly if you're having to do a commute. And I know commuting in the current weather, if you're going into London, is horrible. So looking after number one first, it is about obviously looking after your physical and mental health. But also it's about understanding what is unique about you, knowing your strengths, knowing your values, so that you can perform at your best, so that you are doing work that you love. Because when you're doing work that you love, it's easier, it's less stressful. It's about being valued for the work that you do, so that you can make a bigger impact, so that you can be a better leader and get the recognition that you deserve at work and in your business. And looking after yourself first means role modelling, choosing the work-life balance that works for you, but also bearing in mind that whatever we do, however we behave, whatever we say, we are role modelling for our children, whether you want to or not. And looking after yourself first also is about understanding and being aware of how men and women behave, how we lead, how we communicate. It's not that one is right and one is wrong, but it is about valuing the differences and not trying to be somebody that you're not. So for me, it's about being authentic. It's about acknowledging and accepting compliments, not brushing them away. And we're not always good at that, are we? So that for me is the absolute number one secret, is looking after number one first, so that everything you do works for you. Secret number 2, start with no. Now I'm going to share with you afterwards a YouTube clip where Eric Cantona is teaching another man how to say no. I encourage you to start with no, to always start with no, and then, of course, make exceptions. In my experience, and I don't know about you, but as women, somehow it seems that we're programmed to say yes first. So I want you to get better at saying no. And actually, I want you to practice saying no out loud, especially if you know that's something you're not good at. So I want you to practice saying no, 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 and saying no like you mean it. It's something we have to learn all through our lives. And that's what that YouTube clip will show you, is how to say no and how to practice saying no. And not just practice it in your head, but to say it out loud. I want you to get better at saying no. But actually saying no, this comes back to understanding your values and what's really important to you. So what do I mean when I talk about a value? Well, first of all, I have got a fabulous handout that I'm going to share with you at the end that will help you to explore your own values. So when I say values, I mean those intangible things that you can't actually pick up, but they're nouns. They're things like flexibility, honesty, creativity, joy, happiness, integrity, freedom, stability, security. Those are values, and we all have a different set of values, And my values will be different to my husband's values, but they're probably also quite similar because we get on better with people who have similar values. And actually, one of the things, if you notice at work that it doesn't feel quite right, or you're getting really angry about stuff, sometimes it could be because your personal values are in conflict with your work or your business or your employer's values. So in order to be able to start with no, first of all, you need to understand your values, to be able to identify those. And the reason for that is because the next step from there is being clear on your boundaries. So if you know what's important to you, you can then be very clear on your boundaries, and that makes it easier to start with no and then make exceptions. One of the interesting pieces of research in recent times has been around the separator versus integrator continuum when it comes to work-life balance. So let me just give you a bit more information about that. So a separator is somebody who has very black and white separation between work and home, between work and life, or work and family, however you want to describe it. So it's somebody who goes home at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock or whatever time they finish, and that's it. They are done for the day. They are not checking emails after work. They're not making phone calls. They're not contactable. They're doing their work, very clear separation, and then they go home. Or it might be that they maybe work 9 till 2, then they take 2 hours out, and they go home, and then maybe they work between 6 and 7. So it doesn't matter how that separation is structured, but the separators at the far end of the spectrum are the people who have very black and white, very clear boundaries, and don't mix up work and family or work and life. Whereas the integrator at the other end of the spectrum is somebody who's quite happy to kind of juggle work and life and family all at the same time, who's quite happy to be, tapping away on a laptop at home while trying to put the washing on and listening to their children do bedtime stories, who's quite happy to check emails after hours, who's quite happy to take calls during their day off, who perhaps doesn't detach themselves from work when they go on holiday. And when you think about it, in fact, technology and society is encouraging us, maybe forcing us if you are a separator at the separator end of the spectrum, but there is definitely more of an integrated expectation. There is an expectation perhaps nowadays that we do check our email after work, that we are still contactable on holiday or at the weekends. But that's not necessarily a good thing. And actually for some people, being expected to always be on call can be quite stressful. So it is important to have a think about where you are on that spectrum between separator versus integrator. Now let me just share something with you. Neither one is right or wrong. But what Google discovered when their HR analytics people did some research, they did an employee survey, and they asked questions about work-life balance and how integrated or separated their employees were when it came to work and life. And then they also asked, well, how do you feel about your work-life balance? How happy are you with the way that the work-life balance is working for you? And what they noticed in their research was that those who have very clear boundaries between work and family, they were much happier with their work-life balance. They weren't feeling so stressed or overwhelmed. So I'm just leaving that there with you. I'm not saying that I am at the separator end. I have always been much more at the integrator end of the spectrum, but I do like to completely stop work and really focus on my children when I'm with my children or when I'm with my husband. So I think actually it's a really valuable thing to explore where you are on that spectrum, and if you feel like your work-life balance isn't working the way you want it to, or you're not feeling happy with your work-life balance, it's worth exploring how you can make that work differently. So one of the questions I had in advance today was about how do I get to leave work on time? I'm a project manager and something always crops up at the last minute. So here are a few thoughts for you on how to leave work on time so that you basically start with no. And one of the suggestions I've got for you is if you know you've got to leave at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, then set your finish time half an hour earlier. So you're giving yourself an extra 30 minutes to finish up loose ends, to deal with that last minute email. So plan to leave earlier. Tell people that you leave at 5 o'clock, but be, knowing that you're going to be around until 5:30. And maybe not just other people, but more importantly for yourself, set that in your head that you will leave at 5:30 if you would need to leave by 6 o'clock. Leave yourself some transition time, maybe 20 minutes transition time at the end of the day to tidy up your desk. I know I'm the sort of person that I often go and pick up my daughter from dance on a Friday evening. I need to leave the house at 10 past 5 and quite often at 9 minutes past 5 I'm still busy typing in that email. But if I gave myself more time to transition into I finish work for the day mode, I wouldn't feel quite so stressed and overwhelmed on a Friday night. Bear in mind that longer hours do not necessarily correlate to increased productivity. In the UK we have this presenteeism disease, if you like. So we know that longer hours don't necessarily mean that you're more productive. Don't overpromise. If somebody asks for something at the last minute because it needs to get done for the next day, clarify, how important is this? If it's that important, why have you brought it to me at the last minute? I'm sure you can find nice, polite ways of dealing with that. And also have a look at the type of work that you're doing. Are you doing work that's valuable? Are you doing work that is valuable not just for yourself, but to the business or to the project that you're working on? Is it work that's keeping you really busy, but it's not getting you noticed? Or are you being really busy on stuff that's not useful, it's not valuable, it's not noticed, that other people think is mundane and unimportant? Because if you're being kept really busy on stuff that's not valuable to the business, and you're overwhelmed and your stress levels are going up, and you've got nothing to show at the end of it, well then maybe you need to think about the type of work that you're being asked to do, or that you're volunteering to do, coming back to that start with no. Because very often, getting better at saying no, it's not just saying no to the optional things like could you stay late tonight, but also the things we assume we're expected to say yes to. Because all of these little things, they do add up and they put demands on your time. So when I talk about the things that we assume we're expected to say yes to, I worked with Ashley a couple of years ago, and she'd been out of work for about 3 or 4 years before she decided she was ready to go back to work after a career break. Her children were starting at primary school. She wasn't really sure what sort of career she wanted. She'd done a mixture of roles before. She was a brilliant project manager. She was very good at event management. She'd got experience in the wine industry. She got experience at recruitment. So she didn't really know what sort of work she wanted to do. But she realised she was going to have to keep her boundaries quite small in order to get to and from work, to get a decent job, one that she could get her teeth into, like intellectually. And the reason she thought that was because she assumed that she would have to be the one to pick up her child or her children and drop them off at school every day. She assumed that her partner wouldn't be able to leave work on time or leave work early 1 or 2 days a week. She assumed that he wouldn't be able to drop them off and go into work a bit later 1 or 2 days a week. So she assumed the area, the physical location, was quite small of where she could work, which really narrowed down her options, both in terms of job satisfaction, just opportunities available to her. And it was only when I challenged her, on more than one occasion, she then realised she wasn't finding the work she wanted and asked her husband, and she explained to him the challenge she was facing. I just can't find good quality work in this area and still get home to pick the kids up from school every day. It's just not feasible, it's just not possible. And to her surprise, her husband said to her, well, I could leave work on time, or I could leave work early a couple of days a week. I could drop the kids off a couple of days a week, and then you could look further afield. But she had just assumed that she was expected to say yes to doing all the school runs. So that's what I mean by starting with no. Don't assume that you've got to do everything. Know your boundaries. Get clear on what's important to your values. Think about that separator versus integrator spectrum. And then those tips that I shared with you on leaving work on time. Secret number 3 then is all about your mindset. Now this might surprise you that your mindset is important to how you balance work and life. So let me explain a bit more about what I mean by mindset. So your mindset, we all have thousands of thoughts going through our head every day, thousands. And some of those thoughts we're not even conscious of. We don't possibly write down or be aware of every single thought that goes on in our head every day. Some of those thoughts are going to be really positive. Like for some of us, I'm sure when with the warm sunshine, we thought, oh God, I love the summer. It's so warm, it's so gorgeous. And then probably a couple of hours later, oh my goodness, this heat is so overwhelming. So those are thoughts that we're conscious of. You might have the thought, oh, I'm feeling hungry. You might have the thoughts, I did a fantastic presentation to that client today. Yes, go me, I'm brilliant at what I do. But then there are the other thoughts, the negative thoughts, the thoughts that aren't quite so helpful. Whatever you think or believe about what you do, how you do it, who you are, what you are, your strengths, your experience, those thoughts affect your feelings, your emotions. And however you feel, whatever emotions you have, they will lead to your behaviours, to the actions that you take, to the things that you do. And of course, whatever you do, however you behave, whatever you say, that is what gets you results. Whether they're results you want or the results you don't want. So mindset actually, when it comes to work-life balance, is really important. Because if you go around all day thinking, oh my goodness, I'm so overwhelmed, I'm so stressed, my work-life balance is awful, it's rubbish, you're just going to keep those thoughts going round and round in your head, and you're going to start to feel stressed and overwhelmed and negative, and like the weight of the world is on your shoulders. And so then you're going to start being a bit grumpy and a bit snappy, and if you're like that, your energy is not going to be flowing, your creativity is not going to be there, you're not going to make the best decisions, you're not going to be feeling positive about stuff. So of course that is going to affect the results that you get. So with mindset then, what I encourage you to do is notice what you notice about the thoughts that you have and the feelings that they lead to. Then notice how that results in your behaviour, how it affects the actions, the things that you actually do. But more importantly, what I want you to do is to notice any negative thoughts or beliefs that you might have. Notice them, catch them. And then once you start to see if there's a pattern to your negative thoughts or your unhelpful beliefs, how can you reframe that? What can you do to make it into a more positive thought? We know from neuroscience that our brain is very elastic. It's a bit stretchy, if you like. It's the concept of neuroplasticity. So if we keep telling ourselves negative thoughts, I'm a rubbish mother, I'm a lousy cook, I can't bake, then we're going to believe that. If we tell ourselves enough time, we will believe that. On the other hand, if we tell ourselves fantastic positive stuff every day, then we will believe that too. I'm feeling amazing today. I'm so confident. I love my work. And your brain will believe whatever you tell it to believe. Your brain will believe whatever you constantly think. So the reason for catching your negative thoughts, for noticing what you notice about the thoughts and beliefs that you might have, is so that you can turn them around and to reprogram your brain. So for example, if you're thinking to yourself, oh, it's budget season, I hate doing the budgets, I hate doing the finances, I'm rubbish at maths, I failed my GCSE, I just don't want to do the budgets. Then how's that going to affect your physical presence in the room? How's that going to affect your feelings when you sit down to do the budget? So if you are constantly thinking negative thoughts, if you're feeling a bit about doing the budget or the spreadsheets, how is that going to affect you when you make a mistake? You're probably going to be really cross with yourself and think, oh God, I've made another mistake. And so that's kind of pushing you down. It's pushing your confidence down. And when you're pushing your confidence down, when you're pushing your feelings and behaviours, pushing them to a negative place, your mindset affects how you feel about everything, about your work, about your life, about your work-life balance. Now, you may have heard of the imposter syndrome or the inner critic, and so many high-profile women, ambitious women, women in careers, women running a business, they experience that inner critic in their head that's judging them for daring to succeed or daring to dream. And often these women, it's not that they're daft or stupid, they're bright, they're competent, they're successful. And yet they often find it difficult to accept compliments. Sometimes they find it difficult to believe that they deserve the success that they're achieving. And if that's you, if that's what you notice in your thoughts and beliefs, recognise that inner critic for what it is. The inner critic, that imposter syndrome, it's the voice of your self-doubt and fears. And yet your critic is trying to protect you because it doesn't want you to get hurt. But at the same time, often it's working on really old evidence. Evidence maybe from 10, 15, even 20 years ago. So I still remember my French teacher, Mrs. Paulson, in year 9, when I was doing GCSE French, calling me in front of the whole class, 30 students, all sort of around 10, 11, 12, I can't remember how old you are in year 9 now. But she told me, a lazy worker blames her tools because I'd handed in a piece of homework, my ink pen had leaked all over the page and it was covered in ink splotches, I had ink all over my hands, and so I had kind of inky fingerprints all over the pages. And so she said to me, a lazy worker blames their tools. And my goodness, that's like 30 odd years ago, and I still have that fear, that worry, that concern that people are judging me for being lazy. Now, logically, I know I'm not lazy. I know I'm hardworking, I'm ambitious, but that noisy inner critic, that mindset, thought and belief is still there, and it's bringing it up all the time. You're not working hard enough, you don't deserve that promotion, you don't deserve that success, or why have they picked you, you're too lazy. Sometimes it whispers it so quietly they almost don't hear it. And so what I have to do, I have to remind myself every day, I work hard, I deserve my success, I deserve that promotion. And then I feel good about myself, I feel positive, I feel confident. And then I will do the behaviour that matches that confidence. Because when you think you don't deserve that success, when you think you're being lazy, when you think you aren't working hard enough, when you think you don't have enough experience, then you behave like that. But when you recognise the behaviours that gets you the results that you want, then do that behaviour, take those actions, and you will get the results you want. So that's my secret number 3 for you, is pay attention to your mindset. Pay attention to those thoughts and those beliefs. Notice what you notice about your thoughts and beliefs. Notice those ones that are not so helpful. Notice the feelings that go with them. Reframe them into positive thoughts and beliefs. So instead of, I hate doing spreadsheets, reframe that. every time I work on a spreadsheet, I get better at doing it. Reframe it, make it positive, so that you start to feel more positive, which will lead you to take on different behaviours, take on different actions, which will get you different results. And it will mean that you're not feeling so overwhelmed. You'll feel like you've got your work-life balance under control. So moving on to secret number 4 then. So secret number 4 is one that really speaks to me. Let go of being perfect. As a former reformed perfectionist, I am brilliant at spending hours on fiddling about with the detail, getting the last full stop in place, getting the last comma in place, spell checking, grammar checking, reworking the wording. I'm brilliant at it. But you know what being perfect does for you is it slows everything down. It increases your workload, it affects your confidence, it affects your productivity, your creativity, it affects how well you do decision making. Let go of being perfect. Now, I am never going to let go of having an eye for detail. I have a very high attention to detail, and if you ever join one of my online classes and I've got a spelling mistake, inside I am kind of dying. So I'm thinking, oh no, I've got a spelling mistake. But I know that most people won't notice that spelling mistake, so I let go of that need to be perfect. Because quite honestly, good enough really is good enough. Now, good enough in the workplace and good enough as a parent in particular. Now, there are going to be days when your work-life balance is, quite frankly, not balanced. There will be days when the overwhelm feels too much, your stress levels are going through the roof. It doesn't mean your whole life is going wrong. It doesn't mean the whole work-life balance is bad, is wrong. We have to accept that there will be days of overwhelm, there will be days of stress. So accept it, acknowledge it, remember it will pass. Tomorrow will be a new day. And that's the thing, isn't it? Because there are always going to be periods of time in our life and in our work and in family where something needs more focus, more energy. And that often is the work-life balance conundrum, isn't it? It's when you've got 3 or 4 or 5 things all wanting huge amounts of attention and energy and focus. And actually, although we talk about multitasking and we talk about women being able to multitask, we talk about computers being able to multitask, actually we can't multitask. And computers can't multitask either. It might look like they're multitasking, but actually they're just processing the different lines of code one at a time, but doing it very, very quickly. So it looks like multitasking. So let go of being perfect. Stop trying to do everything at once because you're not being able to give that full quality of attention that actually we want and need. And as a mother, certainly I find as my children get older, so mine girls are 12 and 15 now, when they were very young, when they got home from school or from preschool, they wanted my full attention. It had to be absolute attention because that's what they wanted. But now they're a bit older, when they get home from school, we'll sit and chat or have a drink. But then they want to go off and do their homework or read a book or watch a bit of TV or talk to their friends. So I'm not needed in quite the same way. And so if you're feeling that your life at the moment is almost constant overwhelm because trying to balance the needs of your business or your career and your children, this phase will pass. It doesn't mean that you'll stay stuck in this phase forever. And of course, if you're working on a particular busy project, you will feel overwhelmed. Your stress levels will go through the roof. The thing to take into consideration is this how it is for you every single day? Or is this a temporary phase that you're going through? And I'll tell you, if this is something you're going through every single day, if you keep that constant level of stress and overwhelm up, you will burn out. And I tell you this from personal experience. So in my late 20s, I worked for Arthur Andersen, which is was one of the big four accountancy firms. And Arthur Andersen has a reputation of getting its pound of flesh from people. So I regularly worked from 8 a.m. till 7 p.m. or even 8 p.m. I used to think that going home at 5 o'clock was going home early. And I wasn't the only person at my firm that did that. It was almost an acceptable way of working. I often worked at weekends. It felt like we were constantly busy. The overwhelm, the stressful projects, it was kind of constant. And looking back now, I recognise now there were things that I could have done differently. For example, taking a proper break at lunchtime, because I wasn't eating proper. I wasn't eating well. I wasn't sleeping well. I wasn't really taking proper breaks. I wasn't looking after myself well. In fact, I was so not looking after myself well that, and I didn't really acknowledge this until I wrote my book, The Confident Mother, and in the autobiographical piece in the book, that was the first time I actually acknowledged that I had been self-harming or had been starting to self-harm. And intellectually, I knew that I couldn't go on doing the hours that I was doing, and that if I didn't stop, then something bad would happen. Heart attack, I'd cut myself badly or bleed out, whatever. But intellectually, I knew I couldn't carry on like that, and so I quit my job. So if that overwhelm for you is day in, day out, then please do something about it. Let go of being perfect. Let go of being the perfect employee. Look at the work that you're doing. Are you busy doing work that's being valued? Are you busy doing work where you are being valued, where that's using your skills, your natural talents and strengths? Are you doing work that's in your zone of genius as opposed to your zone of competence or even zone of excellence? And remember that good enough is good enough. Secret number 5 then, as we're starting to look at, you need to take responsibility. You need to take ownership for your work-life balance. So when I say you need to take responsibility, I'm not for one moment suggesting that you've got to get it all done, that you've got to take on the full burden of everything and take the whole world on your shoulders. I'm not suggesting that. But what I am saying is that you've got to be the one to take responsibility to change your work-life balance if your work-life balance is not working for you right now. You are the only person who can make those changes. Now, I don't mean doing it all by yourself. It is about getting support. It is about getting help. It is about asking for help. It is about making changes and asking for changes. And don't be scared of changes. So if you're in a role doing work that you don't really love, and there's another position has come up and you'd love to go for that position, but you just think, I don't know, because I've just got my childcare sorted out and I don't know how I'm going to make that work, then go for that promotion and figure out the detail afterwards. Don't be scared of making a change in your life. Don't be scared of asking for help. Take the responsibility. Ask for flexible working. Apply for a job share. Make that leap of faith and start your own business if that's what you want to do. And I'm not saying you have to do it in a completely risky way. You could start a business, maybe start part-time hours and then start a business in the other hours of the week. Take responsibility and really ask yourself, where am I making assumptions? What am I assuming that I've got to say yes to? What am I saying yes to that I don't need to, that I shouldn't be saying yes to? Because if you don't ask, you won't get. And when it comes to work-life balance and having work that you really enjoy, don't assume that others will notice how busy you are, that others will notice your work, that others will notice your stress levels. In the workplace, everybody is so busy that people just don't notice unless you actually point it out. Do take time to showcase your achievements. Go along to your in-house networking events, go along to after-work networking events, build your relationships, build connections. Take responsibility for your work-life balance. So that's what I wanted to share with you about taking responsibilities. It's not that you've got to do it all yourself, but you have got to take ownership. Don't just sit and complain that your work-life balance is all out of balance. Take responsibility and do something about it. And it doesn't need to be a big thing, it could be a very small thing. And what I'm going to share with you in just a few moments is how I can help you with that if that's what you need to get it done. So the 5 secrets I've shared with you today: looking after number 1 first, so that everything you do works for you, so that you've got the work-life balance that is right for you, bearing in mind that work-life balance is individual. We've talked about starting with no. So, start with no, practice saying no, and then make exceptions, which means knowing your values, knowing what's important to you, knowing your boundaries, knowing whether or not you are a separator versus integrator, but start with no. Don't assume that you've got to do everything. Explore your mindset. What are the thoughts that you have that are leading to feelings and behaviours and then results? Reframe those thoughts. Look out, notice what you notice about negative thoughts. Take those thoughts, reframe them, make them positive, and retrain your brain. Because our thoughts lead to our feelings. How we feel affects how we act, how we behave, and how we communicate. And of course, how we act and behave and communicate, that leads to the results that we get, which may or may not be the results that we want. So look at your mindset, explore that. Secret number 4 is to let go of being perfect. You don't have to do it all. It doesn't have to all be right. Our children really want our presence, and they want that full-time quality presence. 10 minutes quality presence is much, much better than 3 hours of not really paying proper attention because you're busy doing email. So let go of being perfect. And then finally, that 5th secret is about take responsibility. Take ownership for your work-life balance. Don't just sit there unhappy with the way that your work-life balance is working out. Take action, do something about it. And I'm going to share with you now how you could take action with me if that's the right thing for you to do. Because it's all very well knowing what to do, but the how to do it is perhaps a little bit harder. So if you do want to explore with me how you can get your work-life balance a bit more balanced, then this is what I want to share with you today. So I am running, up until the end of June, I'm doing pre-summer school. So this is for you if you know that you want to get your work-life balance sorted, or at least started before the stress and the overwhelm levels start to rise as the school holidays start. I know for a lot of the women that I work with that at this time of the year, we're trying to work really hard to get everything in place to get the time during the school holidays and the annual leave and the business, so that we're getting it all sorted out. Because it's often hard to balance work and family, because most of us don't have the same number of weeks of annual leave as we do school holiday weeks. So it's always a challenge. So if you want to get that sorted out, if you want to get your career or your confidence or your leadership, if you want to start getting that sorted out before the school holidays start, so that it's not hanging over your head all summer, then this is for you. So in my pre-summer school, I'm giving you 2 options. You can work with me in a small way or in a big way. So let me just share the small way with you first. So I'm offering a 2-hour clarity session. Now, I've offered clarity sessions in the past, and the feedback that I had from the women that joined me for those clarity sessions is that 1 hour just wasn't really enough. We had to spend a bit of time kind of getting the context and getting a bit of the detail, and we didn't really have enough time to kind of get our teeth into the matter at hand. So this time round, I'm doing 2-hour clarity sessions, which if you like, we can split into 2 60-minute sessions. But this is your opportunity to get really clear on your work-life balance, an objective review, what's working for you, how are you looking after yourself first, what are you saying yes to when you maybe could be saying no, what's your mindset, how do we need to develop that, do we need to make changes in helping you to let go of being perfect, and what is it that you need or want to take responsibility for. So that's a 2-hour session with me, but like I say, we can split it up. We could even split it up and you do one before the school holidays and one after the school holidays. That is your call. The value is £300, so I don't normally sell just 2 blocks like this. So, but my normal rate is about £150 an hour. So as a pre-summer offer, I'm offering you that at just £150 if you want just 2 hours of really focused time, getting your work-life balance. And actually we could use it in other ways. If you're about to apply for a promotion, or you're thinking about changing job, or you want to start a new business, or you're changing career, we can use it in any way that you want. Those 2 hours are for you. If you know already that you want to work with me in a bigger way, let me tell you about the Confident Mother experience. Now this is for you if you are thinking about starting a business, or you're going back to work, perhaps after a career break or maternity leave or redundancy, or if you're applying for a promotion, or you're being overlooked for a promotion, you just don't understand what's happening, or you're taking on new leadership responsibilities. So it doesn't just have to be about how you're balancing work and life, but clearly that's going to come into the discussions. So the way it works is we have a day together. Well, actually it's a shortish day. It's not a full-on power macho 8 a.m. till 6 p.m. day. I normally run these sessions from 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. Quite honestly, what I normally find is by 3 o'clock, because you've not normally had the luxury of spending time looking at you and your life, and so by 3 o'clock you've usually had enough of me. But we can start earlier, we can finish a bit later. That's absolutely flexible, but it's not 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. so that you can organise childcare or get someone else to pick up the kids, or however that's going to work best for you. I like to take you out of your comfort zone just a little bit. So we go out into the countryside. I do quite a lot of fresh air coaching and networking, because I find that opens up your mind to be more creative, to be more productive, to make better decisions. So we spend the day together, all your lunch and refreshments and chocolate all included. And then we have 5 follow-up sessions of an hour each, where once we've got that strategy, that action plan sorted out on the day, then the follow-up sessions are to keep you on track, to keep the momentum going. Now we can split it, so we can do the day together and then do the follow-up sessions in September when we get back from school holidays. So there's some flexibility there. I'm also throwing in for this because so many of the interviews that I have done for the Confident Mother conference each January, so much of that is so valuable for you if you're going to take on new responsibility or change career or start a business. So I include access to all 3 box sets. That's 2015, 2016 and 2017. There's about 75 different interviews, and obviously I'll point out to you the ones that I think are most useful for you at this moment in time, but all of the others are available to you to listen to whenever you want. So that's valued at £141. The experience itself is £1,800, but so the total package of £1,941, but for your pre-summer offer is £1,200. So if you're interested in this offer, then go to theconfidentmother.co.uk/join, and that's how you can join me today. So these offers expire Friday the 30th of June, because I'll need to juggle my days and make sure I get you fitted in before school holidays start. But like I say, I can be flexible, and if you want to split some of that time before school holidays and some of it after, then we can do that. And if maybe you're not quite sure which of these offers is the right one for you, or how much help and support you want, whether you want something small or something bigger, then let's just have a conversation. We can talk about that too. So the offers expire Friday, the 30th of June. And if you want to find out more about that, then go to theconfidentmother.co.uk/join. And I look forward to working with you. Now, I promised you a couple of handouts, so let me just share those with you. So free resources, theconfidentmother.co.uk/handouts. You can go there right now and you can download this handout for free. How to get more done in 24 hours. So it's 7 really practical ideas that will help you to get more done in 24 hours so you don't feel quite so overwhelmed and stressed. And also on the handouts page, I've probably still got the Worklife, the Workplace Challenges report from the survey that I did last year, if you're interested in that as well. So finally, we have looked at your work-life balance. We have looked at looking after number 1 first, starting with no, your mindset, letting go of perfect, and taking responsibility. But it's not magic. You know, I can't wave a magic wand for you. At the end of the day, you've got to take responsibility. You've got to take action. And it only needs to be one small step. So what I would love you to do now is to write down on a piece of paper what is the one small step, what is the one thing, the one action that you are now going to take as a result of this session. So let me give you a moment to think about that. So what is the one action that you are going to take as a result of today's session? So maybe for you it's about looking after number 1 first, looking after your wellness, valuing your skills. Maybe it's about starting with no, thinking about your values, your boundaries. Or is it your mindset? Is it noticing what you notice about your negative thoughts and reframing them? Is it to do something that will help you to let go of being perfect? Is it about taking responsibility, taking action, taking ownership for your work-life balance? I'd love you to email me and let me know that one action that you're going to take, or come and post it in the Confident Mother group if you're not there already. And then finally, just as a very quick reminder, if you want to join me for my pre-summer school to get your work-life balance sorted before the holidays start, then these special offers expire on 30th of June, so it's in just a few days' time, and you can sign up to those offers at theconfidentmother.co.uk/join. So I look forward to working with you in the very near future, and I will be running another online class in July, but in the meantime, come on over to theconfidentmother.co.uk/join to work with me before then. Thank you for listening.